What's up, guys? Wanted to do a video on GameStop because I haven't done one in a while, and I know that there's some questions, at least with my friends, people I've been talking to. If you have been following the stock, there's this whole T21, T35, which is confusing to some people, especially if you haven't been keeping up on it. But before I get into it, I just want to reiterate that GameStop is my biggest play right now. I've been holding shares for months. I got in December, held some shares, bought some more. Kind of still been buying some more for a while now because I believe, as many others do, that the shorts haven't covered. Even if some shorts did cover in that first run up in January, I think the stock's been even more shorted now, either by the same people or different people coming in and shorting the stock. So I still think it's the highest shorted stock out there. And at the end of the day, when you look at the short interest, which is kind of what sparked this whole craze into everybody buying into it because it had this high short interest above 100%. It hasn't been reported accurately since the January run up. At least I don't believe so. I mean, it seems like the way that short interest has been reported has changed for whatever reason. And, I still believe that this stock is well over 100% shorted. And so do a lot of other people. And that's why you have all these people holding the stock. Anyways, before we get into the T21, upcoming catalyst, right? Because when's the squeeze going to happen? Well, no one has a crystal ball to actually know, but we have this shareholder meeting coming up in early June. And the importance of that is potentially we're going to find out how many votes are out there. And the reason that that's important is it should give us an idea of the short interest. So, realistically, there shouldn't be more than 100% of what's out there. So if there's, a certain number of shares in existence, you shouldn't have more votes than that. Well, potentially, and what the speculation is, and what I believe, and everybody else believes, is we're going to see way more votes, maybe three times, four times, five times as many votes than the actual shares that exist. And the reason that happens is when people short sell, they borrow shares that they don't own and they sell them into the market. And then other people buy those shares up. Well, when you're borrowing shares that don't exist, which is naked shorting, and you're selling those into the market, now you're having you're putting more shares into the market than are actually there, right? And so if retail has been buying this up and owns more of the float than actually exists, which I believe, and what's the speculation is, then we should see a reported number come back from the vote count if the company actually gives it to us that reflects that. So that could be a huge upcoming catalyst. Also, with this whole shareholder meeting, whether it happens before or after, but I think sometimes around there we're going to find out who the CEO is going to be. So that's something that could be coming up soon. The CEO announcement, which would be huge, especially the company's been hiring all these top executives from everywhere. I think speculation is that the CEO is going to be huge and make a big splash. Um, Potentially, there could be more news as the company pivots to e-commerce. We already recently, we went on a run of about a month where it felt like every week we were getting some good news. They paid off all their debt. They purchased a large distribution warehouse, all the new hiring they've had. But there's also been some speculation that now that they're debt free, we'll see some sort of acquisition, like maybe an esports gaming company, something along those lines, which would also be serve as a catalyst to help get retail momentum and drive some volume into the stock to help it move up. So we got some exciting times ahead. I think the most important thing is don't get your hopes up or set dates, because what we've seen recently is on all these big dates where something's supposed to happen, right? The stock gets heavily shorted and attacked, and because really what the short sellers want is they want to drive that price down to make us scared and say, oh, this is it, and then sell our shares. We're not doing that. So anyways, this whole T21, T35, if you've been, kind of following or loosely following, there's been a lot of hype about that happening this week, specifically tomorrow. So I think first, before we get into that, you got to understand how online brokers work. Okay, so when you buy shares from an online broker, let's say you go into your broker and you say, hey, I want 10 shares. When you buy those shares, yeah, they put them straight into your account and they take money out of your account. But those shares aren't actually at your broker yet. Okay, so what happens is they everything goes through a clearinghouse. So throughout the day, as let's just say your broker might, have 1,000 buys on GameStop. We'll use that as an example. 1,000 buys on GameStop throughout the day. But then also your broker has 700 sells on GameStop throughout the day. So throughout the day, they're putting shares in certain people's accounts. They're taking shares out of other people's accounts at the given price at the time, using the bid and ask and all that. But when the day's over, if there was 1,000 buys and 700 sells through your specific broker, that means that your broker needs to now go collect 300 shares, and they get that from the clearinghouse. And at the same time, they need to deliver money to the clearinghouse on how much they owe between all the buys and sells that happen throughout the day. And then that money gets funneled to other brokers, to market makers, to everybody else. So the clearinghouse kind of acts as this, where everything comes in and then goes out. And the reason I think that's important is because that's kind of how this failure to deliver in T21 thing kind of comes into play. So basically, when you have these big options expiration dates and all of a sudden all these options expire in the money, well, usually what happens is if someone's selling covered calls, meaning they own the 100 shares that they sold the option for, well, easy enough. Option expires in the money. Your broker would take your 100 shares out of your account, deliver them to the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse would then give those 100 shares to whoever's broker bought that options contract and exercised it. But you also have these naked call riders, right? So they sell calls and they don't own the underlying shares. And that's kind of how that whole gamma squeeze thing works out when that happens and everything else, because as prices go up, they're supposed to hedge. Well, some of these guys don't hedge the shares. They just write the calls, and then when these big dates come up, they don't actually buy all the shares. So when they're supposed to deliver these shares to the clearinghouse, which is like 2 days later, so options expire on Friday, that following Tuesday, they're supposed to come up with the shares and deliver them to the clearinghouse so that the clearinghouse can then distribute them. When they don't, that's what's known as a failure to deliver. And so I don't understand why it's like this, but when they fail to deliver and they don't come up with these shares to the clearinghouse, all of a sudden now they're given 21 days to go get them. So when they come up with a failure to deliver, they're given 21 days to go get these shares, and they have to get them by the 21st day. And it's calendar days, not actually market days. So the theory behind this is that a lot of these big run-ups we've seen in between, and let me pull this up, is basically this 21-day failure to deliver cycle. And it's actually been pretty spot on. I read about this on Reddit. There's been a lot, I think a couple months ago is when I read about the first one, but it's actually been pretty spot on. I can't remember who exactly pointed this out first, but basically since this big run up in January, if you do the whole 21-day cycle of 21 days past the failure to deliver, there was February 24th, which is right around here, and you see on that day we ran up almost from somewhere in the $40 range up to 95 bucks. Saw some momentum after that. But the next 21-day cycle, the stock kept running on momentum, everything else, maybe a little people covering. We got up, stock gets hammered back down. But now this next 21-day cycle was right around here, March 25th. You see another big run up, like 114-ish to, what do we got? 184. Another big run up, right? So then stock continues to go, get shorted, kind of everything that we're used to. And then somewhere around April 26th, not as big, but you still see a run up of, 150 to almost 170, right? So still big movement for one day. All right, so now that we kind of know that, well, the next day, this T21, the next day in the cycle is actually tomorrow. I think 525. Today's the 24th. We're actually getting some movement today too. So, I'm assuming that this is either retail kind of knowing that this T21's coming now and they're buying in and trying to get in on the action ahead of time, or it could just be people buying those FTDs early knowing that they got to deliver them tomorrow. So the speculation is that tomorrow's going to be a big day, or this week will be big because of this failure to delivers that need to be bought and delivered. I hope my explanation kind of helps make more sense of it. Now, the T35, on the other hand, is basically the same thing, but it's market makers. So, as where regular naked call riders have 21 days, the market makers have 35 days. And so their FTDs get bought in different cycles, but it also ends up falling on this week. So this week we have this T21 that is supposed to be tomorrow, and these dates don't necessarily, because it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it might even be Wednesday when this happens, but it's supposed to fall right around this week. And then the T35, same thing. So the speculation is that this could be a big week. Like I said, don't get your hopes up. I think the best thing you could do right now is just buy and hold. Buy the stock, hold it. It's gonna come along sooner or later. And if you're not necessarily a true believer in the squeeze, or even if you're feeling kind of like, I don't know if this squeeze is really gonna happen, I did a previous video where I kind of laid out, and there's plenty of other information, way more information than I have on GameStop, and that's why I don't do too many GameStop videos. But even if you're not in for the actual squeeze, I mean, I think this stock is a great long-term buy, because as this company pivots to e-commerce, I'm thinking it's going to be worth somewhere near 400, 500 in the short term. And by that, I mean within the next 2 years, once they kind of get established and kind of make this pivot, I could see this company really taking a chunk of the gaming industry. So either way, it's a good buy, but I think the best thing you could do right now, this seems like the biggest play out there in terms of buy some stock, hold it, and if the squeeze doesn't happen, you're still in for the long haul in a stock that should go 2 to 3 times in the next year or two, which would still be a great investment. But I firmly believe that the squeeze is going to happen, and that's why I keep buying more shares. And if the squeeze happens, now that's just a bonus, right? And now you get even more money out of it. So I hope this video made a little bit more sense. Don't believe what you read on the your news ticker and all that. They're trying to, scare people away. There's plenty of good information on superstonk. That's where I get, and that's stonk with an N. So it's SUPERSTONK. And that's where a lot of the good DD on this, on GameStop has been coming out. People are putting in a lot of great research, a lot of good information coming out of there. Check it out on Reddit if you haven't already. But I just wanted to explain that, because I know a lot of my friends that I've been talking to are like, well, what is this T21? I keep seeing everyone's hyped up about T21, but what is it? Well, I hope that made more sense. All right, have a good day. Good luck in the markets. Hopefully you liked the video. If you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll try to do a video on something else and just try to explain this stuff in the simplest terms that I understand it. All right.